So to start off with, how would you describe economics in your own words?
Economics is a convergence of economics and ecology. We need centerpiece of the whole existence, human development, economic development, environment development, social development.
IMF and World Bank say that the world economy is at 2.8%. But global conflicts and elections are shaking things up. So how much does this impact us?
The primary indicators were 3.3%. If you look at which are reducing carbon emission, solar, wind, biofuel, biomass, hydro, nuclear, you can
Welcome to The Green Generation, where we break down big ideas with real talk. I am Shruti Seetharaman, an entrepreneur and content creator, and today we're diving into the clash of titans almost, which is economics versus economics. So the real question is, can we keep growing our wallets and still protect the planet? So to take a deep dive in with us, today we have Dr. Seetharaman, who has been practicing green and conventional banking as a former CEO of Doha Bank for over 20 years and also runs his own sustainability foundation called SST. So to start off with, how would you describe economics in your own words?
Economics is a convergence of economics and ecology. We need centerpiece of the whole existence, human development, economic development, environment development, social development. So the convergence is resulting in sustainable value creation. That's why economics and ecology has to converge. That's the bottom line.
Okay, and do you think we've surpassed the point where we can separate economics and environmental issues?
Absolutely not. Let's understand the dynamics of the productivity. It is sustainability. You need to have elimination of extreme poverty, zero hunger, food security. When you have global warming and climate change impacting rising sea level, increasing temperature, weather patterns are changing, climate resilience is not there, then your productivity is impaired, profitability is impaired, sustainability is impacted in human terms. So the underlying principle is you cannot separate. It's integral, and that's the gross welfare. We need to create a better world. It means we need to focus on sustainable value development. So delinking economics and ecology is not practical, not possible.
Okay, interesting. And now to do sort of a global check-in. I think the IMF and World Bank say that the world economy is at 2.8%. But global conflicts and elections are shaking things up. So how much does this impact us?
Well, the primary indicators were 3.3%. If you look at the last year, October meeting, the fund meeting, IMF said 3.3. It was revised in the spring meeting in April to 2.8. The World Bank said 2.3%. Now, after April, we had Iran-Israel conflict. The geopolitical fragmentation, if I use the expression, has resulted in extraordinary set of downward trend. The American election resulted in Trump administration, trade tariffs, policy uncertainty, geopolitical issues, and overall inflation divergence. Monetary policy is divergent in many parts of the world. The fiscal is contingent on gross debt to borrowings, GDP versus, again, mounting debts. So you have a bigger challenge in recognizing so many uncertainties, so many risks is cropping up on account of the overall developments. The changing dynamics is impacting, so there is a downward revision. Result? Not even 2.8% is possible, not even 2.3% is possible, possibly less. Let me also give you a split here. America is cooling, but it's not going to report 1.8% as originally predicted. Advanced economies are going to be less than 1.4. Developing economies, emerging markets are going to give less than 3.7. ASEAN as a bloc is doing well. There is enough reasons to indicate 5% growth is possible. Latin America is around 2%. Sub-Saharan Africa is around 3.5%. And again, China is stable, but slow down, 4.5%. India has got strong momentum between 6.5 to 6.8%. Gulf, the Middle East, is going to report around 3.2%. That's the reality.
Interesting. And now if we move towards climate versus economy, we all understand that climate change is no longer someday, it's now, right? So our country is actually forced to choose between eco-growth and economic survival.
There's no choice. The question is whether you're aiming at long-term or short-term. If you are aiming at long-term welfare, total prosperity, gross welfare, marginalizing the downtrodden is not a solution. The rich and poor creating so much social unrest. We need to make sure, bring in a value system which is reducing the inequality. We have to empower women. So we have an impending challenge to implement sustainability as a developmental policy in the fiscal terms, and again, in terms of the overall growth momentum. It is not easy. It's a balancing force. If you want to fire it up in short term, mercurial performance you want, ignore the climate risk and then start putting policies which are not responsive for long term. Some countries are engaging in, for example, those who don't believe in climate change and global warming, they are doing it.
So you actually believe that climate policy can change the economy?
Absolutely. Climate policies are here to transform long-term value. We need stability. We recognize, on account of the human activity, there are tremendous amount of impact in the global warming. Every year, for example, 2024 was the hottest year. Last 5 consecutive years, we have growing temperature. Increasing temperature is even more than the original predicaments, 1.5% pre-industrial level. That's what we aimed at. We have to contain it. It's not happening. This is a dangerous sign. So there's no choice. Either you aim at long-term welfare of humanity or you destroy with a short-term focus. The whole purpose is defeated if you are not recognizing the importance of climate resilience and importance of climate risk management.
And now, having been a former banker, the question is, where is the money going, right? Banks are now starting to factor in climate risk. Does that actually change how they lend and invest?
Absolutely. Lending and investments are two arms. Essentially, if you recognize lending to a portion of your risk-weighted capital to sustainable development, investing again to sustainable value creation, projects which are akin to circular economies, reducing, again, reusing, recycling, making sure small and medium-sized entrepreneurs come in, reducing the income inequality, bring in gender equality again. These are value creations which will have a long-term return even for the bankers. So, lending to the rural development, ensuring we have rural-urban divide is reduced, making sure you invest in those projects which are reducing carbon emission, solar, wind, biofuel, biomass, hydro, nuclear. You can opt to invest or lend in those specifics and you can make good commercial return out of it. That's my experience. I have given money for food security. We lend money in terms of small and medium-sized entrepreneurs. We have lent money for water security. We have lent money for solar. We have lend money or invest money in cooling systems, for example. So, if we don't recognize the importance of these two segments, focusing on sustainable value creation, a portion, if you are not allocating it, you demean your professional ambit, you demean ethical and moral governance. And the world is now redefining, including the global governance in terms of banking, Basel Plus. Around the world, regulators are also thinking about climate risk management and clear focus on the risk involved, whether it is market risk, operational risk, financial risk, credit risk. All these areas needs to be looked at objectively and make sure you behave socially responsible banker.
Okay. So in a world where, marketing, social media marketing, and the nice things to say are what is projected, because, almost like you can make bad things sound good with marketing. You can sell bad products. I'm not saying sell bad products, guys, but we are in a world where marketing plays such a huge role. So the question is green investing real, or is it just marketing fluff? Is it just a nice thing to talk about? Is it just the right thing to do because you sound right?
Yeah. Greenwashing is something which is attempted, not that it is not done. World over, there are unscrupulous elements who engage in such manifestation. But green investment is real. If you look at 2024, over 3 trillion has come in terms of green investments, real investments, whether it is issuing green bonds or green equities or debts or hybrid. We have seen project specifics where carbon offsetting mechanisms are funded. So green investments are happening. In Islamic terms, green sukuks are issued. So whether it is water management, waste management, solar or wind, biofuel or biomass or hydro or nuclear, there are alternates are being sought. More to it, now even in the trading, environment is factored. So when it comes to import-export, green is factored. If you look at the big picture, even in the Gulf states, green bonds are issued. Year after year, incremental values are being produced. Globally, as a part of ESG, institutions are focusing on green bonds. We have seen around the world, Fortune 500 companies have supplemented additional advantage in issuing green debts. We have seen emerging markets like India, China is leading the table in terms of green investments. They're accelerating the pace of green investments. Even banks are given stipulation to lend more towards green funding, lending. So we have a tremendous opportunity in terms of building green economies. That's the long-term focus. We need to recognize this is a must. Who can do it other than bankers? Credit creation. When your GDP is growing, initially you have your inhibitions because of this transition. This space is a transition space. The average cost in terms of production, if you're engaging in green, is higher. Again, you have to recognize green inflation can step in even when you do such activities, but it's only a temporary phenomenon. We need to reskill, upskill people in terms of carbon trading. We need to build more and more green techs. We need to bring in more and more investments in renewables. For example, India is topping on the list, the best place, cost-effective place to do green solar is India. Now we also have opportunities in terms of green technologies. Banks can lend or invest. So it's not greenwashing. There are marginal elements who are engaging in such distractions, but there are regulations which will fix these problems.
So since you spoke about India, would you say that India stands in a good place on balancing growth and sustainability, or do we have some more time to go?
Well, 500 gigawatt is what the commitment by 2030 India has made.